Hola, welcome to Clear Vision. My name is Simon and I'm a psychotherapist, and all the videos here are based on my experiences as a therapist and generally as a human being going through life, trying to work his way through it. So today I wanted to talk about, and it could be a complete career killer for me, but I'm going to go for it anyway. So I live in South Spain, to explain it. So there is a massive drinking culture here. And one thing I hear a lot is happy people don't drink. And I generally tend to agree with that statement. And I would then want to flip this over into the importance of emotional regulation, the importance of self-awareness. So happy people don't drink. What does this mean when people say this? Well, generally, a lot of people, for a lot of people going through life is quite difficult, it's quite stressful, it's quite painful, and a lot of people were never shown how to express certain emotions because their parents didn't know and their parents didn't know. No one showed them, and we become a product of our environment. And as humans, we have this tendency to, it's easier to numb it off. And anybody who's ever abused any substance will tell you the same. It's easier to numb it off than to address it. It is easier to pretend something doesn't exist and is not there than to actually deal with ourselves and gain some self-awareness. Well, it is easier and it isn't easier. It depends in the long run. Like I said, this is quite a controversial subject, and I'm opening up for debate. I'm not saying it is this, this, and this. In my general experience, people who tend to drink a lot and drink every day tend to be switching off from things. And when you actually sit down and have a really in-depth proper conversation with them, I would say 99% of the time that I've done that, these people end up really revealing that they're quite unhappy with their lives. They've never known what they wanted to do with themselves. They've got a whole load of dysfunctional parts going on, a whole lot of confusion. They're existentially quite anxious, and they're just busy doing the best they can with the time that they have and the limited knowledge that they have. And yeah, recreational use of drugs, alcohol, or television, or pornography, or the internet, or scrolling through Instagram, or whatever it is that people are doing, gaming, anything like that, is far easier than sorting yourself out, you know, improving yourself, working on yourself, working on your emotional regulation or your emotional intelligence, or however you want to put. I don't like that phrase, but you know, working on your more of your emotional regulation. So I'll give you some example before I get jumped on about this. Where am I going with this? Okay, so the expression of anger. Most of us are never taught how to express anger. We are taught not to be angry, and we are taught where it's socially acceptable not to be angry. What then happens is people either get depressed or they are prone to violent outbursts or hostilities born out of frustration. And there's that common one, I see this a lot. Oh yeah, so-and-so's a really angry person because they just don't know how to express themselves emotionally, which is factually probably correct, but also it's quite sad because no one's shown them. No one has ever shown them, explained to them, guided them, and chances are once they're an adult they don't want to know anyway, how to deal with their own hurt, sadness and frustration. Because anger is an umbrella for hurt and pain. It's easier to be angry than to be sad for a lot of people. A lot of people are very afraid to let the floodgates open because they fear that they can't shut them, and various other reasons why it's easier to be angry. So we spend our time going through life being told we can't be angry, we don't know how to express it, and we end up, I don't know, with violent outbursts, being depressed, sitting on our own emotions. The energy of those emotions doesn't know where to go, so we have psychosomatic symptoms. We suffer with migraines, headaches, IBS, stomach problems, skin problems, all sorts of issues because of lack of education around emotional expression. and then we can drink. We can have a couple of glasses of wine every night, or slam a few beers, or worse, smoke joints. We can do various other recreational drugs to switch it all off. We can watch tons of porn. We can scroll through social media now. There are many ways to numb ourselves off, and we've been kind of doing it with alcohol for hundreds of years. Alcohol and drugs, you know, I believe, I could be factually wrong, but I believe they used to ply a lot of soldiers and that in medieval times. It was just ply them with wine, just get them drunk, because how else do you control the masses? Well, just keep them drunk and vaguely entertained. And I think that kind of philosophy has been touched on quite a few times over the years in various works of literature. So where was I going with this? Oh yeah, happy people don't drink. There's nothing wrong with having a drink. There's nothing wrong with having a social drink. I've got nothing against it. There are some things where it's a bit dangerous. The point here is the emotional regulation of one's life. And often I hear and work with people who want something from life, are very unhappy with their life, but they don't know how to get the thing that they want. They don't know how to shape the life that they want. And this is where I'm kind of going with this video. So the first thing is to, okay, if you want something from life, you generally have to work for it. If you want something outside of the box, if you want to have success in a certain area of your life, you generally have to work for it. You have to dedicate time to it. If you want to become, I don't know, whether it's something to do with sports or arts or business or family or whatever it is, you have to generally practice it, get good at it, learn about it, practice it some more, dedicate time to it. And in order to do that, you have to kind of emotionally regulate, or learn to emotionally regulate yourselves, because doing those things, building that business, trying to achieve that level in sport, trying to improve, trying to achieve that level in creativity, or that level in your job, or your career, or that level within raising a family, takes time, dedication, and a lot of learning about yourself. Otherwise you're going to constantly be reacting to the environment around you. And one of our favourite reactions to life is to pretend that none of it's happening. So numb it off with alcohol or drugs, numb it off with pornography, numb it off with social media or something like that. And of course all of these things give us a dopamine hit. And so we tend to want more, and we tend to want more, and we can get ourselves into a bit of a vicious cycle. What I have tended to see and experience is that as people begin to make changes to their lives to bring higher levels of fulfillment to their lives, so work towards something. This goes back to that kind of like man's search for meaning that Frankl came up with. This existential needing to have a meaning in your life will find your meaning. You know, that's what all this chasing your destiny is all about, and they all point the same way. Find meaning in your life, find a purpose, whether that's being a really, really good father figure, mother figure, being a really, really good friend, being really good at your job. It's what people like Muhammad Ali used to go on about, you know, whatever I was going to do, I was going to be the best at, I was going to learn to do it to the best of my abilities. That is a dedication and a commitment. That is having a purpose and a vision and a goal to work towards. Those people tend not to misuse substances. And there's a reason for that, because they have an ulterior focus, and they have also stared, I wanted to say, because I really like the phrase, stared into the void, and the void has stared right back at them, in which case they've stared at themselves. So and that's scary stuff to do, but actually if you could do it, it's quite empowering. If you can actually stare into the abyss and the abyss stares right back at you, you're staring right into yourself. That's what you are doing. You're going, okay, my life is X, Y, and Z. I'm doing this to pretend none of it's happening. What do I actually want? What can I improve? Oh God, I've got to do some work on myself. What am I going to do? I'm going to look at myself. I'm going to look at how I got to this point, because laying blame elsewhere isn't going to help you, and it isn't going to bring you anything, because the responsibility, and I've moved into a different arena, the responsibility lies on you. So I'll do this in another video as well on existentialism, but it's worth looking at under the guise of happy people don't drink, as in people who are fulfilled or working towards fulfillment don't tend to spend and this is in excess, every day substance abusing, numbing things off, distracting themselves with dopamine hits from, like I said, porn, social media, etc., etc., because they're working towards something. Now, there's nothing, I have got nothing to get, there's nothing wrong with watching a bit of porn, there's nothing wrong with scrolling through social media, there's nothing wrong with some of these things are quite entertaining, and everybody likes a dopamine hit, everybody likes a drink, well, not everybody, but you know, and there's nothing wrong with these things, with getting a dopamine hit. It's when you constantly looking for that dopamine hit, when you're using that, and meanwhile your life is passing you by and you're just treading on the mill, just keeping going and experiencing more and more levels of discontent, higher levels of discontent, which pushes you to go for the dopamine hit more. So instead of having recreational social drinks at the weekend, you start to, I'll grab a bottle of wine for Monday night, I'll grab a bottle of wine for, we've run out of Wednesday night, I'll grab a bottle of wine for Thursday night, you know, or I'll smoke a joint on the weekend, and now I'm smoking a joint on a Monday night and a Tuesday night, or I'm gaming for 6 hours and my partner's calling me, or my kids are calling me, but I'm gaming, or I'm social mediaing, or whatever it is I may be doing, distracting myself from the real world around me and my life. And like I say, this is not a lecture. But if you are experiencing unfulfillment and then trying to get that back through some kind of dopamine hit, some kind of replacing that with some kind of substance abuse or misuse, then it goes back to the happy people who don't drink. And if you want, I think chasing happiness is also a bit of a fool's errand, but chasing fulfillment and growth is maybe something worthwhile. You can see constant results with that, progress. Chasing happiness is actually, let's change the phrase. People with a purpose don't drink. Happy people do drink because they're happy. I don't know, but I think you can get where I'm going with this. So, you know, if you're constantly chasing the dopamine hit, which is the happiness, you are going to constantly be drinking. So actually that whole phrase is completely null and void. So, but the idea behind the phrase really is happy people don't drink. Because they generally feel quite fulfilled and happy in life. They're moving towards something, they're working towards something, they have commitment, dedication, motivation, and those other distractions don't take over, don't need them to alleviate anxiety and boredom, because they already have worked out how to do that through having a focus. I hope that helps. It was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, and until the next time, look after yourselves.